Wendy, you've heard me say this quote before, and a lot of you, we have some great longtime followers, but sometimes you got to go back to, a quote you love because it works so well is Bruce Lee. Everybody knows Bruce Lee said he doesn't fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks. He fears the man that practices one kick 10,000 times. I got to train Derek Jeter. This guy is a Hall of Famer, first ballot. And Wendy, when I told you he did the same fundamental stuff every day, and Wendy, you and I've talked about this, I could not get my head around when kids who were 7 years old had coach pitch when they hadn't even finished T-ball. Do you know what Derek Jeter did 75 to 100 times before he saw a ball thrown to him every day?
Oh, sure. He hit off the tee. Yeah.
So here's a guy who's a Hall of Famer, and he's working on, you can see him, he's just working on the fundamentals. So back to like our kids in the Little League, let's not rush people. Let's master the fundamentals. Welcome to the NASM Master Instructor Roundtable podcast, where we explore the art and science of human movement and performance. I'm Marty Miller, here with my fellow NASM Master Instructor and co-host Wendy Batts. And today we're diving into a topic every fitness professional will face: bridging the gap when your clients don't fit the textbook. In this episode, we'll discuss how to navigate those gray areas, share stories from our own experience working with diverse clients, and offer practical strategies to help you stay confident and effective, even when the textbook doesn't always give you those answers. So Wendy, look forward to always working with you. And I know that you're going to have a lot to offer in this week's episode.
Oh, yes. You got to love it when people read the textbook and they look at you and say, I have no idea what I just read. This episode is definitely for you because I am that person. I'm very visual. Marty, you know this. When we have taught and gone through new information, I think I've asked you like, hey, can you show me what this is saying? And if you're a very visual person, hopefully you will enjoy what we discussed today.
Yeah. And as we move forward and we go through the introduction, I think NASM, Wendy, you and I've talked about this for 20 some years now, is that when we teach it to you, we teach it to you in a very perfect world, linear manner. And that's because we have to make sure that you are absorbing the information and that we can test your competence so you can get into the field and then truly start to learn the model. So the difference between following the model and a rigidly sticking to a script is something we're going to cover today. Not all the answers could be in the textbook because the textbook would be way too long and you wouldn't want to go through it, right? So that's where professional development, continuing education, things such as this podcast will help you navigate some of those gray areas. And obviously we're going to talk about things that we talk about all the time: when to regress, when to reassess, when to refer out, and then how to modify programming when clients have pain, fatigue, unexpected limitations. Then of course, provide some tools to help you adapt while staying grounded in science.
All right. So when we talk about, clients in the textbooks, we're looking at NASM and Marty, we've both said this. It's a blueprint, right? I mean, we do assessments the day somebody walks in the door. We want to learn more about them. We want to learn about what they enjoy. What are their SMART goals? Why did they decide that today is the day that they wanted to meet with you to start a program? And, what we're trying to do is take that textbook and apply it to every single person. But every single person, as Marty just said, is different. And so we want to think of the OPT model as a compass, right? Mm-hmm. This is allowing us to provide the best information based on the assessments and what you're finding for this particular client. And then how can we maximize the client's results? And I think sometimes we overthink this. And if you are new to NASM and you're listening to us and you're just like, oh my gosh, this textbook seems like a lot, please don't feel that way. Just start with the basic assessments. And we're going to talk a lot about that because the assessments gives you, like, if you see it, you're going to mark it. And then if you open up the textbook, you look at a solutions table, we tell you exactly what to do just to at least get your mind thinking of, oh, if I see this, then I need to start with that. Because the more that you do this, you're going to see the same patterns over and over that are pretty common with most individuals. And then you're going to know exactly what to do over time without even having to go back to your book and using that as a reference.
Right. And I love the compass analogy. And, I'll give you another one. But think about, maybe it's because I was an Eagle Scout, Boy Scout, and I used the compass all the time. A compass gets you heading in the right direction. It doesn't tell you that you're not going to have to navigate over, under, around certain things on your way, right? Just because you want to go north doesn't mean you always get to travel a true north path. You might come to a crossing like water. Well, you may have to go a little bit this way to get back this way to get back on the path. And just like, since Google Maps, you put in your starting destination, your ending destination, and you're off and it's giving you turn by turn directions. And all of a sudden it says, hey, a problem's up ahead, but you're still on the fastest path. Or, hey, a problem showed up. Do you want to try to save 7 minutes going this way? That's what program design is going to be all about. And that's where I love the model, because it is that compass to keep you moving in the right direction. And when you know how to navigate through the model, you will have the ability when somebody comes in and says, you know what, last night I played pickleball and I sprained my ankle. Or, you know what, I haven't slept for a week because I have some issues going on in my family and I'm exhausted. Well, maybe power's not the day for that workout that day, right? So keep those two ideas in mind as we go through this and understand that you're never going to train in a perfect world.
And I have to laugh, Marty, because again, it's so where we are different. My sense of direction, y'all, is terrible. I can go to the same place 5 or 6 different times. I have been there. My husband gets so mad. He's like, we just went there, but I still have to plug it into my phone because to me, when I'm facing forward, that's north. Something's behind me, that's south. And it doesn't matter which direction I'm facing. So don't give me north, south, east, and west. Just say, go here and turn left at this place, or look for this sign, or use your phone. And so when we talk about everyone being different, as you can see, I learned completely different than Marty. Marty can read something and he's got it. I need to practice it. I need to feel it. I need to see it. So when he talks about the compasses for me, y'all, the compass is not for me. So once again, as you can see, this is why we have 2 people doing these podcasts to show you that what may be easy for somebody isn't easy for someone else.
Well, Wendy, I'm going to tell you, don't move to Florida because we use the ocean as the guide in I-95. Someone might say, oh, it's on the northeast corner. So
is the water on the right or is the water on the left? And if it's all the way around, you know what? I'm just going to be stuck in the middle until somebody comes to get me. Just give me a drink and a beach chair and I'll see y'all when I see ya.
There you go. There you go.
Well, I'll go ahead and start this one, Marty, but as we say every single time, guys, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And the assessments, they don't have to be something that takes a really long time. Just have someone remove their shoes, stand up, put them in the proper 5 kinetic chain checkpoints, and then drop down into an overhead squat with their arms overhead. Have them just do a few different ones, see what you see and note what you see. And if you really want to go and dive deep into the assessment process, Marty and I have talked multiple podcasts about possibly looking into the corrective exercise, because we really do go into more specifics about if you see this, here's exactly what to do, maybe to help guide you in a more structured, specific path. But in the very beginning with the CPT, if you can just see that the feet are going out or knees are caving in or whatever the lower back is doing, if you're noticing this more in the lower half, then do the modified, which is basically having them put their heels on a 2x4, squatting down with their hands on their hips. And did you see it clean up? If you saw something clean up, then you know most of the compensation patterns are at the foot and ankle, maybe not so much in the hip or above. And then if it's safe, you can do something like the single leg squat and give you even more information. And just again, as a special note, if you do decide to do the single leg squat, or even if you have them do a lunge and you notice that somebody has different compensations on the single leg squat or the lunge pattern, you're going to go with those results over the overhead squat. So that's going to trump that. Because again, it's very specialized. You're taking the base of support away from that client and you're seeing how they differ between their left side and their right side.
No, it's great advice, Wendy. And, as we move here to the next slide, we got 3 case studies coming up after this. So, but don't lose sight of this slide. So if you're listening, We're going to read it out to you, but you can remember, you can always go back and watch this on NASM's YouTube channel for the visuals, for all of you that are just listening in. But here's the key points. We got 4 of them here with a couple bullet points underneath. Is keep a flexible plan. Have 2 to 3 ways to accomplish the desired outcome. And Wendy, we could seriously speak for an hour on this one bullet point. Are we talking about a long-term goal? Are we talking about the fact that they might need to do the bridge and they haven't mastered the bridge, but if you give them the same exercise you gave them yesterday, they might think that they're not progressing? So there's a lot that will go into this. But having 2 or 3 ways to accomplish the goal or the desired outcome is going to be critical, because 1, people are a little resident to always doing the same exercises. Sadly, when I first started in my career, it wasn't so bad, but with Instagram and social media, they think that they need a different workout every single day. And it's like, well, but if I'm trying to elicit a response in correctives or stabilization endurance, I know the body needs maybe 2 weeks if someone's trained before, but basically 4 to 6 weeks of that type of stimulation to let the body adapt. So you're going to have different methodology. Or, I never worked in a facility like you, Wendy, where I pretty much had rule of the gym where I could set up a workout and know that it's going to be there. I could have a great plan in my head, and all of a sudden, boom, the suspension trainer, TRX, is used. Okay, I was going to do this type of exercise, a modified squat. What are my other choices, right? So that's where have your plan, like Wendy, facing straight, which means north, understanding that you're going to have to maybe turn right a little bit to head back to north. So just go in there understanding that you need 2 to 3 ways to accomplish the desired outcome. So Wendy, before I go into the next point, I'm sure you may have something to offer up there as well.
Yeah. And just remember that even if you do decide that you are going to use the same exercise, and you have to, there are different ways to, and it kind of blends into even the next one, but it blends into what can you do a little bit different so it's not the exact same exercise. I have a lot of athletes that even though they need to be doing the same thing, if I just tweak it a little bit and it's something that's different, they don't even say a word. But if I said, okay, you know what, I know we've done this the last few times. There's 2 exercises, and you have heard me, I will go to my grave. 2 exercises every single person does is their quote warm up after they foam roll and stretch. It's the bridges and it's the tube walks, the lateral tube walks. I do that because it's an activation and I'm trying to get the outer hip to function. I'm trying to get the butt to fire, and then I'm trying to then go on to whatever. Now, that's just part of it. I tell them that from day one. So there's no reason for someone to say, why do we do this every single time? Because everybody does it and I never get questioned. However, if I did the same chest press every single time, people would be like, why are we doing this again? Or let me guess. And Ken Miller said this on a podcast that I did with him when we did Random Fit, that he was doing the same thing over and over again with the same client. And they just started walking on their way to the next piece of equipment because they had been doing the same thing over and over. And then Ken realized, wait a minute, I probably need to switch this up. So some people don't mind it. My people do. But to your point, Marty, if you're in a busy gym, you better have a backup plan. No question.
And that's the fun of it, in my opinion. So then we move into use regressions as progressions, master the fundamentals. Wendy, you've heard me say this quote before, and a lot of you, we have some great longtime followers, but sometimes you got to go back to, a quote you love because it works so well, is Bruce Lee. Everybody knows Bruce Lee said he doesn't fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks. He fears the man that practices one kick 10,000 times. I got to train Derek Jeter. This guy is a Hall of Famer, first ballot. And Wendy, when I told you he did the same fundamental stuff every day, and Wendy, you and I've talked about this, I could not get my head around when kids who were 7 years old had coach pitch when they hadn't even finished T-ball. Do you know what Derek Jeter did 75 to 100 times before he saw a ball thrown to him every day?
I'm sure he hit off the tee. Yeah.
So here's a guy who's a Hall of Famer, and he's working on, you can see him, he's just working on the fundamentals. So back to like our kids in the Little League, let's not rush people. Let's master the fundamentals, own and hone those skills. And sometimes like a bridge, like a lateral tube walk, and maybe you have 1 or 2 others you might like a Cobra for upper body or a YTA. Master those. They've got to be so locked in. And then you can make them harder by adding a little bit of resistance, or some things can be on a single leg. It's like a glute bridge, etc. But if you can't do the fundamental movement patterns, right? We don't have exercises. We have movement patterns that we call exercises or break them down into exercises, right? You have to be good at those. And when you are rock solid in those fundamentals, everything else opens up to you. So use those regressions as progressions, and let's not get carried away with the multi-joint crazy stuff until they can control regions of their body and get the right muscles to fire at the right time.
And remember the neural continuum too, guys. If Marty and I have done a podcast on that, if you're not familiar with that, but remember, small adjustments to the same exercise, it really does trigger your brain and your body to have to work differently because you're recruiting different muscles. And so, for example, if you're doing a chest press on the cable and you're in a staggered stance to start, which is the easiest, right? Your base of support is bigger and the weight is behind you. If you just think about going 2-arm chest press, then you hold both arms out in front of you, and then you alternate your arms, and then you bring both arms back, and then you alternate your arms, and then you drop one of the handles and do a single arm chest press, and then you do a single arm with rotation. All of those require a different demand of the body. Even though you're still utilizing the same piece of equipment, you're still working on the same prime movers, you have to think about the different stabilizers and what your body has to do for that resistance. And then you can change your lower body then from staggered stance to side-by-side stance to a single leg, and always changing your different patternings to what I just said. So it really does go from simple to more complex. And some people start single leg, one arm with rotation, eyes closed. I mean, it's a hot mess. Knees are caving in, the arches are falling. They have, they can't control it. There's no tempo. And that's really not programming the brain to get really good information in. So you want the client's body to be able to work with the adaptations that you're placing on it, and you want it to be done correctly. And then at that point, then you can challenge them. But just remember, don't go to the hardest thing first because you saw it and you thought it was challenging. Go to what the client will know is challenging, add the weight, make sure they can execute it. And then the next time, add different types of movement patterns, and you're going to see that they're going to be able to do more different exercises better because you're changing the way that they're doing it, because you're slowly progressing them with the different demands.
Awesome. And then I'll cover these last 2 bullet points and we'll get into the case study. So build trust and ask for feedback in every session. Remember, it's personal training. It's personalized to the client. Yes, you have small groups, things like that. So sometimes maybe you can just get little nuggets of information, but try to gather information every session. Listen more than you talk, right? That's why they always, I was always told that's why you had 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? And the client's experience is a data point. Did they experience discomfort, soreness? Are they, all these different things, or are they feeling better? Are they moving better? This is all data that you can put in as you design your program. And then, shocking, use NASM, CES, and OPT model as your framework. CES programs are targeted warm-ups. Then you get into your linear, periodized programming. And then maybe you finish off with a PES, depending on your client, your background. And now you've got that roadmap, that compass to really give people great programs. So Wendy, we'll see here as we turn the page, a case study. So what we'll do is we'll kind of, if you want to read it, and then we'll talk about how you might do it, how I might do it, just to give people, again, this is the real life where the rubber meets the road, where here's a client, we want to follow the model, but it's not always going to be in that textbook approach.
Perfect. Well, Marty, before I actually get into the different scenario number 1, I want to say that this episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. So get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. Okay, Marty, scenario number 1. So we titled it the post-rehab puzzle client. So if you have a 55-year-old client that is recovering from multiple orthopedic surgeries, so for example, the knee and shoulder, and this person wants to return to recreational tennis. Attaboy, right? Gotta love tennis. Despite clearance of their physician, they have limited range of motion, lingering pain, and fear of re-injury. So some of the key points to keep in mind, and then Marty, I'll hand it back over to you. But if you're adapting the textbook assessments, right, with the client, and you're looking for their compensation patterns, you're going to prioritize the psychological readiness over the protocol, and then you're going to collaborate with your healthcare providers to create a real world training progression. So Marty, I know those were the key points, but when you have this client that walks in and this is what you're seeing, what do you have for our people that are listening?
Right. So first, my question would be, as I look at this individual, do you have to get back on the tennis court right away? Right. If you're coming off a rehab, especially generally speaking, because he's 55 years old, this means he's not a professional athlete. In that type of rehab, you would be put on the court and in those situations as a return to play. Most likely in traditional physical therapy, they're saying, can you get back to your activities of daily living? So the insurance isn't going to pay for this client to, go through 4 to 6 or 8 extra weeks of training where they're getting speed, agility, quickness, and all that stuff. So my first assumption is this is just traditional physical therapy. Have that conversation. So if they're like, hey, I'm feeling as good as I've felt, I have to play. Okay. First thing is, can we ramp up your time on the court? Just like we need to ramp up your fitness. So I try to set parameters where, hey, if you used to play 3-4 days a week, can we start with a half-hour hitting session in a controlled manner with a coach? Because that way the ball is a little more predictable. You're covering a little bit less distance. That's not where my area of expertise is, but I'm still going to guide them as an athletic trainer, say, okay, let's still try to control that. Number 2, are you going to warm up and cool down afterwards and treat those areas that were injured so you have less likelihood of injury? Then what it comes to I can do in the gym. Okay. So let's assume that they were kind of away from fitness at that point in time. I'm going to focus on correctives and stabilization. Yes, they're a tennis player, and yes, they want to be dynamic. They're going to get enough dynamic stuff on the court, swinging a racket and moving side to side. I don't need to over volumize them right now in that area, because to me, if a 55-year-old post-recovery of rehab comes out and spends an hour to hour and a half on the court over a couple of days of the week, they're getting their plyometrics in already. I don't need to feed into that. I need to teach them how to earn the right to control those motions, get into the stability, and teach them a corrective, a targeted warm up, and a cool down. And then from there, as hopefully their volume of tennis goes up, I can move them through the model. But yeah, they're going to play, even though they haven't gone through the whole model. But their power to me is going to be on the court, and I'm going to try to get them to understand how to take care of themselves before, after, and what we can do during the week so they can learn to stabilize those joints when they're trying to move more athletically.
And I would have to say that I think the biggest thing that I read, and I'm going to read this one more time, they have limited range of motion, right? Lingering pain, unfortunately, we can't technically scope of practice deal with pain, but pain's usually, when they say pain, it's usually just discomfort. Well, think about this, guys. If we have somebody lacking range of motion, then they are compensating using muscles that shouldn't be a prime mover. And so if I can help increase range of motion in areas that are deep, that do not have full available range of motion, and better their range of motion and movement quality and patterning, then they're going to get out of that pain or discomfort over time. And then I'm retraining the body how to properly move the way that it was intended to move. Because if you have a hinge joint and you don't have full available range of motion, and then you try to move side to side, or you start adding rotation, then if you don't have the range of motion and you're doing all 3 planes of motion, it's going to cause more stress to that joint, which is going to increase someone's pain or discomfort. So if I can help that and then get the right muscles that maybe have been not firing like they should, so they're weaker, to start to activate and work hopefully better, if not the way that they were intended to work, then they're going to be more powerful. They are going to be able to move in all 3 planes of motion better. So they're going to be better at their sport, but they're also going to decrease the chances of re-injury again. This person has had, it says, multiple orthopedic surgeries, which means there's probably scar tissue. There's probably a lot of things going on. So to Marty's point, doing an assessment is going to tell me a lot, and then providing them with using maybe the Edge app. I give someone their homework. I tell them, watch the videos. This is what I want you to foam roll and stretch and do these activities or exercises on their own at home. I'm helping them and giving them a tool that they can use, especially my older clients that can't remember how they wanted the exercise executed. There's a video, it shows them exactly what to do. And then I actually give them things based on what they're used to doing, maybe in their physical therapy, and then maybe changing it up so they can do some stuff on their own. And then always, again, stressing the importance of the cool down. But tennis is a really hard sport. And if you have knee and shoulder issues, knees, I mean, think about the grounding and pounding, the starting and stopping and moving and planting and rotation. But then the shoulder too, especially when you're going through and doing a serve, if you don't have good range of motion in your lat, and then you're trying to serve, it's really hard to do. And, if you are really internally rotated and you're doing a lot of forehands and you're not doing a lot of backhands, then think about the over repetitive movement patterns going on in the front part of their shoulder and that anterior section. If it's caused like discomfort and pain, it's not sitting in the shoulder capsule correctly, you're going to continue to feel bad. So it's amazing what a foam roller and stretching can do, especially and then activating the weaker side. If you do that alone, you're helping them out a tremendous amount, whether they're playing right at that moment or they want to play 3 months from now.
Great advice. So scenario 2, Wendy, I'll read this and let's kick it off, see what you think. So we have the high achieving outlier athlete, a former college athlete, now in their late 30s, is going to present with imbalanced movement patterns and pain despite looking incredibly fit. Standard program designs seem to plateau their progress or trigger flare-ups. Our key points here are rethinking fit versus functional, navigating the gap between aesthetic goals and movement quality, and then reassessing risk versus reward in program intensity. So what do you got?
I think that you gave me this because I deal with this probably more so. People that I love this. I used to play football in college, or I used to be a professional athlete, 20 years ago, and I haven't really been doing anything. But when I go to the gym, I do the same type of workout that my coach taught me how to do when I was a lineman, in college. And so there's a lot of Olympic lifting. There's a lot of things because it worked for them at that moment. It helped them become successful on and off the field when they were playing at a higher level, whether it was collegiate or whether it was professional. And the thing is even though they've been able to stay in shape, a lot of people have the genetic means where they might have lost some weight because they don't have to be as big as they used to. So aesthetically, they look amazing. But if you feel terrible and you don't move well and you go to the gym and you're doing the same thing over and over, we see this all the time with people that love to do certain exercises that they're not being challenged anymore. It's because their body has adapted to that particular weight or that particular movement pattern. But if you change it up and you give them something different, for example, if they're always doing a chest press on a bench, and then I tell them to do a 4-2-1 tempo push-up on the floor with ideal form and they can't do it, it blows their mind. But if they go ahead and put their feet together and they just pound out push-ups, they can do it that way, even though they're not working through full available range of motion. It's because they've never had to. So now you're having to kind of flip the switch a little bit, and then realizing and teaching, especially when you're in your 30s and now growing into your 40s and 50s and above, you're going to spend more time on mobility and flexibility than you are on strength. You still need to be strong because we know we start losing our strength as we age. But if you don't have good range of motion and then you try to load it, you're going to injure yourself long term. And it's a lot harder to recover when you're older than you are when you're younger. So the biggest thing is don't think about the way that you look. Think about the way that you move. And that's a really hard thing to teach someone, especially when they're coming in. Like, I want you to look even better than you do today, but I want you to have better posture. I want you to feel better when you're working out. We're going to challenge you in a completely different fashion. And I guarantee you're going to enjoy it because it's going to be really hard. And then kind of put it on them to think that way. It works every single time, every time. And we start in phase 1, but it's different. And they're pretty shocked that they can't do a lot of things like they thought they would be able to do when they first saw it.
Yeah. And just a couple of things that I can add to it is, just because somebody is fit, they may have a great VO2 max. They may have great 1 rep max strength, power, vertical, etc. Doesn't mean they move well, right? So you've got to rethink. You can be incredibly fit, but have really tremendous amount of movement dysfunction. And when you correlate more movement dysfunction on a more powerful, high velocity or high output frame, probably going to get injured even quicker. So just refocus them on that is a part of fitness, right? Don't teach them just to think about what their 1 rep max is, their personal records, their VO2 max. Think about how well do I move as probably the most important indicator of their health, because everything else will follow.
Exactly. All right, last one, Marty. I'll read this one to you. All right, and you, especially having twin boys and then another boy too. I mean, I know that they're older now, but now you've got little grandbabies. So the time-starved parent, client as well. So you got a 42-year-old single parent with a demanding job and 2 young kids that want to improve overall health and reduce back pain, but can only commit to 30 minutes for a session per week. So 1 hour a week. They have poor sleep, inconsistent eating habits, have high levels of stress. Marty, I think you were like, besides the single parent part, we're thinking of me here. Standard program templates don't fit their lifestyle or capacity. So here are some key points before we get started. So how to prioritize movement quality and recovery over volume. The role of behavior coaching when exercise is a low priority. Designing minimalist, multi-benefit workouts, such as mobility, strength, and stress reduction, and leveraging the client's real-life activities to build fitness outside the gym.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. So first and foremost, the 2.5 hours a week, that's awesome that they can commit to getting in the gym at all. But then even if this was a regular client, sometimes, with more time, that's all they commit to in the gym anyway. So I still have to take these strategies. Can you get in? And Wendy, we've done accidental exercise. Can you do accidental exercise? What do I mean by that? I have a stand-up desk. If I wasn't filming a podcast, I'd be standing up. I could work on my posture. Can I take exercise snack breaks? Take 5 minutes and go for a walk around the house. As this gentleman is here, don't know if you're watching, he's working with his, young boys on his head. But you can still do activities like Jace, my grandson, spent the night last night. He's actually right behind me in the gym. He's asleep in one of those sling hammocks. Kind of really cool. Because, we did it for exercise and now it's his new nap place. But he and I went for a walk this morning, first thing, right? I'm going to spend time with him. So why not go for a mile and a half walk? Why not, with kids as they get older, do a yoga session with your kids and things like that. Get them involved. Try to play. Kids are in great shape. They don't exercise, they play. So try to put those things in as well. So that way the 2 times in the gym can be very hyper-focused on certain things that you may need to work on. Just have an active lifestyle and try to bring that into the family. And you can be shocked how much you can keep yourself in shape without doing a traditional workout. Take your kids to the pool, things like that. And then, find some time at the end of the day when the kids are asleep, say, for 10 minutes, I'm going to hit my most important correctives just for 10 minutes, or get up 10 minutes earlier. And like I always do, Wendy, that's the first thing I do is I get up, not because I have the time to train with the kids, but if I don't get it done early, it's going to be harder to get it done. So really prioritizing those, but just try not to say, I've seen too many people do it. Well, if I can't get an hour, I'm not doing any of it. Well, the research shows you don't need to do that to stay fit and keep yourself out of pain. So to me, before I flip it over to you, I think that those are some of the misses people make, is they can live an active lifestyle even though that they have kids and are busy.
Well, and I think another key thing is the high stress levels. And, I have openly admitted that I am not really good at meditating. I've been trying and I listen to apps, but I have to do something more of a guided meditation, because if I just go into a quiet space and you give myself 5 minutes just to think about, nothing, or try to meditate or try to find some positive things to think about, I'm thinking about everything on my checklist that still needs to be done. And I'm terrible at it. However, if I downloaded a app that is more of a mind, like it's actually telling me what to think about and bringing me back into my head, little things like that. You've got to find ways to reduce the stress, because think about your cortisol levels and what's happening to your adrenals. And then that's not helping you because you're tired. It's not putting you in the mindset to really get out of kind of the funk that you're in, and you will be constantly in that state. that's not going to help your sleep. That's not going to help you make good choices when you're eating, because you're on the go and you just feel terrible and you just want something to be quick and simple and you don't have to think about it. And so if you start to think about the stress levels first and do maybe some guided meditation right when you wake up. So set your alarm. If you're always getting up at 5 a.m, set it for 4:55. And that 5 minutes before you normally would get up, that's when you're going to do it. So like to Marty's point, you're doing that right from the start. You're clearing your head. You're thinking about your day. You're starting your day out that way. But Marty, I mean, you said the right things too. If you have 30 minutes in the gym, that's usually, if I have already foam rolled and I know that I'm going to go and do my cool down, I only need 30 minutes in the gym, and I can do a lot of multi-joint exercises, and I go back to back to back to back. I can get a lot of things done. I've hit all the muscle groups that I needed to hit that particular day. And if I do that twice a week, then that's a win. And so the thing is it doesn't have to be just the biceps and the triceps and then go into the leg press and then doing this. I'm going to do something like a, lunge to balance and then a bicep curl to overhead press. Well, right there, I'm working some balance. I'm working my quads. I'm working my glutes. I'm also then having to stabilize. So my stabilizers are working. I've worked my biceps and my shoulders all in just one exercise. And if I do that and I have a good control and good pace, I've hit multiple muscle groups just in one exercise. And so the thing is you want to do different things, different ways. You need to have some ideas. And if you have this person, tell them that it is actually a win, that they're going to be able to be successful. And like your point, Marty, when we went on vacation, we would get up every morning as a family. We would do a walk on the beach. If we played catch, if one of us missed it, we had to do 10 jumping jacks as a punishment and then run after the ball. We did a lot of different things that made it fun involving the family. And I think that's also important. And we don't look at that, as you said, exercise, but it just is more fun family things to do together.
Absolutely. So great points, Wendy. So as we kind of wind down this episode, hopefully we gave you some great thoughts and maybe make you rethink some things, but some key takeaways. Use the NASM OPT model and CES model as a compass, unless you're Wendy. Wendy, use Google Maps because you can't always think.
There's always ways as well.
Okay, whichever. But just know north is not always straight ahead of you. Be creative while sticking to the science. That's the fun part of it. Listen to the client and then master those fundamentals. So hopefully if you can take away those key points, you'll hit the gym tomorrow with a kind of a new perspective on things.
Indeed. If you guys have any questions or want to contact me, you can find me at wendy.batts@nasm.org, or you can find me on Instagram at wendy.batts13.
Great. My info right here, dr.martymiller72 for Instagram, and then email marty.miller@nasm.org. So Wendy, thanks for the amazing content, feedback, thoughts, experience that you share. And for all of you that joined us, we always are appreciative of that. And most importantly, we look forward to seeing you next time on the Master Instructor Roundtable.